I'm going to ask Catherine to jump onto this screen with me. Catherine, are you here? Are you able to join me?
I'm here. Can you hear me okay, Lou?
Brilliant. Sounding good on this side. Thanks, Catherine. Guys, so we're very privileged to have Catherine here with us today. She's founded Think Room many, many years ago, and it's become a household name already, as has Grindstone, I believe, as one of the kind of flagship accelerator programs on the continent. So, Catherine, thank you for sharing your time with us today. I know you have a busy schedule. So, yeah, we're really keen to hear from you just around kind of your notes and your core learnings around accelerating scale-up companies on the continent. We're super stoked to have you. Over to you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Lo. I'm so excited to be here, and it really is a wonderful conference. So allow me to engage with you over the next few minutes just to talk about scaling. And before I go into the detail, let's take 30,000 feet step back and just say what is the scaling about? Why is it important? We've really worked from a Think Room perspective, is the one that gave me the tally just yesterday, well over 13,000 entrepreneurs across the continent to date, and really from the smallest of the small to really scale-ups that are growing exponentially. Watch the space. We're going to be announcing a very interesting exit soon through Grindstone as well. But really, we've spanned the whole continuum from startup all the way through. And there always is this question about how do I scale, and how do I scale up in a way that's sustainable and that really the cash keeps up, the people keep up, the strategy sets the strategy and show how we should go. So as Lo said, I really want to touch for a minute or two on each of these 4 blocks, and I'm going to try and make it very practical. I'm going to try and share some of our experiences with you in terms of how we experience it across, especially Grindstone, because there we're working with companies very much post-revenue, and they are profitable, but to a place where they need to be more profitable and grow exponentially. I want to start with the people component. So when I speak about scaling in the context of people, I always say this is for me the most important part. And of course, depending on who you speak to, everybody will have a different view, but the people component for me is the most important one. And I tell you why. It brings energy or it takes energy away. There's no other way to explain it. And it really is about the people that work for you, the people you work for. So clients, employees, suppliers, partners. It is really important that from a people perspective, you have this sorted, because this is what we see through scaling, the biggest Achilles heel if you don't. Here's the reality. We can try and be as kind and as nice as we are, but if there's a people specific relationship that's not working in your business, it's going to trip you up at some point. I have this saying, and I always say it, the first 10 people in your organization that you employ as a business owner will determine the culture of your organization until the end. Think about that. And if you think back about your own experiences, think about the team members that you have in your team that you've employed. Are they living the values? Are they living the purpose of exactly what you had in mind? And if not, can it be adjusted? And the reality is, if it can't be, staff churn, employee churn, I always say, needs to be a healthy 10 to 15% to continuously get new blood into the business. For those who work with me, I think they would know that the people I work with are the most important in my life. So I'm not coming from a doomsday perspective. I'm just coming from you as the owner of a business. You have a responsibility towards this entity to bring the best, to surround yourself with the best, and to show up as the best. And if there's something off with the people, it just has such an impact on revenue and on profits long term. So think about that. There isn't enough time to go into more detail about people. So I just want to say one small thing about partnerships, especially if you look at fundraising. If you're fundraising from a VC, or you're fundraising from an angel, or whichever part of your journey you're in, if you're fundraising, just remember that when you give equity, you're bringing a partner on board. And I always say, take your money as late as possible, and of course, give it away, at the least amount of equity as possible. But the people part of it, the partnership part of it, is the most important. We always say, when we look at funding a business, especially through Grindstone Ventures, In the first meeting, you'll know whether there will be a partnership or not. And then if there isn't going to be, move straight along. We have guts. We know that we have intuition, and it's not for nothing. So that's on the people part. And I always start with that when I talk about scaling, because for me, in my perspective, that really sets the framework. I want to talk about strategy next. So there's I'm not sure if it's an urban legend or whether it's real, but somebody spoke about meeting Raymond Ackerman many, many moons ago and asking him, so tell us what strategy is. And he had such a simple response to it. He said, strategy is not, as we know, the thick, the strategy planning session, and then the thick report that comes out goes into an electronic file and never comes out. It literally just is the what, the how, the when, the why. That's it. And depending on who you ask what strategies, you'll have different answers. Simon Sinek again says it's all about the why. And if you can get the why right, everything else just falls in place. Some others just say it's about your unique value proposition. The reality is your strategy is to you and your business what it means to you. It's not a specific way. Of course, there are tools and methodologies and approaches, but it's what you make of it. What I want to say specifically about strategy is that if you see Corona or not, COVID or not, we will always have one or other disaster coming our way, and we've got to be ready. If you see your top line revenue reducing consistently over time, please go and check your strategy. There's something there that needs adjustment. You've either not kept up with industry, you either have not kept up with competitor analysis, whatever that is. I'll use an example on strategy right now. One of our grindstone companies had a small tweak in strategy when the pandemic hit. And because we were also, remember, we were also scared of pivoting too much, because disrupting the strategy too much and then having a very negative impact on the business. But what they did was they actually realized, looking back when COVID hit, this was June last year, they realized it was way beyond just the COVID impact. That was the last bit that pushed them to see that their revenue is truly declining. But they had seen this trend coming over a while, that revenues were declining. And there was one specific thing in their strategy that they did not keep in mind. Competitors were offering the same offer in a different way, not a cheaper way. And they had gently adjusted. COVID actually helped them, and they could increase revenue. So that's always a sign. If revenue is decreasing consistently, you know you have to look at strategy. And of course, there are, as I said, there are many different ways of looking at that. I want to talk about the third element next, and that's the one of execution. I can remember throughout my career working through the pieces of execution. At a time, we had to build an execution model when we had just done the Chevron Texaco merger. And it was so interesting to really, through all the readings today, and as we're experiencing today, execution still really is where the rubber hits the road. I'm sorry I'm giving you the cliche, but I can't put enough focus on it, because as entrepreneurs, as business owners, we're all so different. We have different skills. We have different sets of being comfortable, places where we like to play. And those places where we don't like to play, very often when we work with startups and founders, they are the ideators, or they are those who come up with the ideas or with all the magic. But the execution bit just truly bores them to death, as an example. And there's another rule that I have. So I'm literally too old to have to worry or care about growing too many of my weaknesses. I would much rather employ much better people who are much better at it, who are better than what I could ever dream to be, and literally let them light up those weaknesses that I have in a way that serves the business. So here's the thing, if you know there's something not right with the execution part of your business, you will see perhaps revenues are going. You are trying literally to get the profitability of the business up, but for some reason, the profitability is just not there. Why? Because we are doing things in a too long-winded way. We haven't got our execution methodologies down to a T. I speak for myself, mea culpa. I'm one of the worst when it comes to a stickler for detail, a stickler for making sure that it's perfect, perfect, perfect. And I often have to ask myself the question, execution in our business is so important, but I often have to ask myself the question, Am I pushing that last 5%, which already should be at 120 in other people's standards in terms of delivery? And I really am not serving the business and impacting profitability. So think about that as a business founder right now where you are. Think about this thing of, are you the best at execution? Whatever that definition means in your business, in your industry, and compared to your competitors. And if not, are you surrounded by the best of the best who would do it much better than you or I would do it, and make sure that it is delivered? Because that's how you get things done much more efficiently and improve profitability. And at the end of the day, that's fantastic. The last thing I want to talk about is cash. And yes, of course, cash flow is the reality, and especially for those businesses who battled through COVID. One of our businesses, as an example, really my own business is really battling a cash flow dilemma when COVID hit, and then the cash in the business gets into a whole different light, So the question here is about, how are you truly spending your cash? Do you work off a proper forecast, proper budget? And again, as I was shaking my head, I was thinking, oh goodness, the audience on the other side would probably thinking, how boring. But the reality is, we see a clear differentiator in our businesses that we take through acceleration in Grindstone, where they have a very tight handle on what money comes in, what money flows out, and how it does, than those who don't. Yes, of course, we can be successful despite ourselves. But for true scaling, this discipline needs to be in the business from the start. I can't tell you how much time we spend as part of our acceleration processes to get the businesses to focus on this component. And again, as a founder or an owner of a business, if that's not really what you want to do, get the experts to do it. That is truly would be the best money spent whilst you get at growing your business. So I just want to leave you with the scaling thought. My 10 minutes are up. I want to leave you with this the scaling thought. Remember, nothing improves your cash flow more than revenue and reducing sales cycles. So getting more efficient and getting better at what you're doing. I wish you well. I would very much encourage you to look out for any of the brilliant programs around South Africa and the continent. There's so many different programs that you can join just to learn bits and pieces of scaling. And I want to close out with this. We cannot be all things to all people. We're not chocolate. We just can't be. And so we can't be all things to our business, but we can be darn good one at a time. So select out of the 4, the one piece that you really feel you fail in your business at right now in terms of strategy, people, cash, or execution, and work on that. Thank you so much, Lo.